I am going to call the meeting to order at either 5:59 or 6 o'clock, depending on which clock we use. So we'll call it to order. We are all present with the exception of Bill, who I'm sure will join us as time permits. Following our script, we will now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Does anyone have any additions to the agenda that they'd like to present? Jeff, anything from you or from the admin team?
Nothing from me.
Okay. If not, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as shown.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Katie. A second?
I'll second. Okay, same.
Sure. We're going to do Brenda. It was a split second. I don't think there's going to be any issue. Any other discussion? All in favor of the approval of the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. No scheduled presenters this evening. Reports and communication is such that we haven't met as a committee or any committee, so we can forego that. And we don't have a student rep here this evening. Does anyone have anything to chime in on the committee reports by any chance? Otherwise, we're just pushing forward.
WeTech is meeting on Thursday.
I saw that.
Yep.
I'll join in that for you with you.
Sure.
And of course, we may have talked about this, but the Ed Foundation auction has been canceled.
And does the Ed Foundation have any schedule commitments, or will they reschedule this year?
I think they're canceling, and they're planning to either return any donated items or hold them for next year, depending on what the donor wants to do. But
I can give a quick update on that. Sheena Bechtold has gotten a hold of me a couple of different times over the past week or so to let me know that donors have been getting back to her, and they are wanting to donate if they've given cash or other monetary pieces, that they would like for that to go to the devices and the technology piece that we have currently needs for, that we're partnering with the Ed Foundation and with HBC and providing internet services to families that are in need.
Really? Nice gesture.
Yeah.
WeTech, you met last Thursday?
We're meeting this Thursday.
Okay. And your numbers aren't such that it needs to be, or are you doing it on Zoom?
We're doing it on Google Meeting, but yeah, virtually.
Okay. Administrative board reports, we have several on file already. Let's go right down the line. Jen, would you like to add anything to the elementary school?
No, just reiterating my thank you to just the hard work that teachers are putting in, the custodial staff, the cafeteria workers, and emergency care. And just want to say thank you for all their hard work. And aside from that, nothing else to add.
Middle school, high school, Tim, anything for us besides your post?
No, I just reiterate what Jennifer said. Thank you to the staff for all their hard work. This is a pretty major deal to, in the middle of a school year, pick up and, get proficient in a completely different method of instructional delivery. But also to thank the parents in the district for being so patient and understanding with our staff for getting up to speed with distance learning.
As we did last meeting, I hope you'll pass on to the complete staff the admiration and the thanks of the board. I think you all would agree to that. It's You've all done a great job for us. So please pass it on to staff.
Will do.
Technology, we have a post there. Anything to add to that?
No, it's been a very interesting last few weeks. This has been a real stretch, and yet not either. There's a lot of things we had in place, and I'm pretty excited what has happened, how we've been able to adapt and adjust. And I want to thank my teaching colleagues for the patience that they've had to have in making adjustments when we found out the capacity of the infrastructure, of the programs that we've been using. But I also want to say that I've heard such good things from parents, and I've heard from more than one parent how impressed they are with our rollout. In particular, I want to just say I had one mom who commented she's still on the email from her previous school, and in comparison, this has just been so, the communication has been so good, and our direction and making adjustments, we've communicated that, and she's been very appreciative seeing how well we've done with this. And then knowing that some of the other schools are not in as good of a place as we are in having the technology that we do. So there's some good things in place.
Well, congratulations. The tech is such a huge part of what we're doing right now.
Yes, and I want to send a shout out to Sandy Sherritt and Dorothy O'Reilly, who have been very pivotal in this as well. Putting a lot of time, a lot of hours. So
Thank you. Community ed and activities were a little light in those departments right now. Tim, you're taking some of that on. What's anything there to report?
Yeah, I'm learning a lot about being an activities director right now. So, no, it's been kind of, the spring sports coaches have included me on all their emails to staff, or to their students. So some are coming more frequently than others. But just recently today, we had a conversation with Greg Tweet about the spring trap league. And I think the decision was made today to cancel that for the spring. They had a deadline of today to make a decision about whether they would stick it out and hope for the best for a shortened season. But like I said, I think the decision was made to cancel the spring's online trap league and to try to have a special get together shoot sometime at a later date when things settle down with the coronavirus.
Just expanding on that just a bit, we have two openings. One would be an AP, one would be the activities department. Are we moving forward in that process at all?
Yeah, we had interviews for the associate principal today, and we've got interviews scheduled for the community ed director, activities director position next. I think it's next Tuesday. Is that right, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. Moving forward on that. Sometimes you forget that we still have day-to-day business to do here in spite of what's going on. Head of operations and maintenance, Dave, you're on. Anything there for us?
Nothing new aside from what I submitted, unless I had any questions about what's going on.
You got everybody working the day shift, I assume, huh?
No, we kind of split it up, so we only have a couple people on at once. So we got some on days, some on evenings. They show up around noon, work till about 8:30 to make sure that we can cover the emergency care cleanup at the elementary. So kind of moving everyone around, but it's working well right now.
You lost somebody to moving on to other opportunities. Have you replaced yet?
No, we haven't replaced anybody yet. We're gonna kind of ride it out till the end of the year and go into summer, and then things kind of went upside down. So
Yep.
We really haven't given that any attention at this point.
Okay. Before we get into the SOUPS report, is there any questions for any of our admin team? Okay, if not, we'll move down to the superintendent's report. Mr. Sampson, it's yours.
Yep, just a quick update here. I also want to thank our staff with further incredible efforts over the past few weeks of getting distance learning up and going. I want to thank the parents for their patience that they've had with the school. Things have not, some things, you know, there's going to be bumps in the road, obviously, and so we've worked very hard on getting those bumps smoothed out and being proactive on a lot of different things. I also want to thank my admin cabinet team for the amount of lift that they've had in this as well. It's a tremendous effort on their part with all the extra hours put in and off-peak hours, obviously, and some of the days of putting time in as well. But things are going well, and we are very close to making sure that everyone has internet connectivity. I know Amy and her department's working hard on that, and so that was probably be one of the last few hurdles to clear in this process, is to make sure that everybody's hooked up properly. And as far as the extended stay-at-home order currently, I know the governor spoke today and extended out the peacetime emergency executive order, but I didn't see anywhere in there that they extended the stay-at-home order until May 13th. I haven't been able to had a chance to take a look at that because we were in interviews this afternoon. So I think the stay-at-home order is still through the end of April timeframe. And again, with things looking kind of in doubt here in the springtime, I wouldn't be surprised if spring sports were officially canceled before long, and if the governor has hinted at it a few different times to possibly not having school come back at the end of this year. Now, there's a few things that I know a couple board members that asked about budgetarily, and maybe Josh can jump in here also about what that means for us. The governor has enacted these emergency orders and asking schools to follow through on such things as childcare and food service, which is all well and good and great things that we're helping to provide our community. But some of the things are not funded fully from the government at this time, and that's our fee-based programs in Fund 4. And what that looks like as far as that moving forward, we may have to have some discussions down the line about whether we need to add to our budget on that or not. So Bill Thompson is calling me. Can you hang on just for a second? Sure. He may be joining us this way. Hi, Bill. Hi.
Hi. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here today, but.
Well, I can see you, but we can't hear you, or at least I can't hear you. So we will try to have Bill join in this way. If you want to speak for just a second to make sure that people can hear you.
Yeah, I got you on my phone because I couldn't get it to work on my computer.
Not getting involved.
Can you guys hear Bill okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody can hear you, Bill.
Okay, I'll go back to my Zoom meeting then.
For me, you have to open an attachment. The Zoom invitation isn't like it appears like an attachment in the email, but I learned that last week.
There's a little bit of a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got problems with my school email address on my computer though.
Oh, right. Okay, well, we can have you just join like this for now if you wish.
Yep.
Perfect. Any questions more specifically around, I guess I don't have a good answer for you on the funding piece. I know I was called by a county commissioner earlier this week. There has been some talk by the commissioners around the state about the possibility of delaying the property taxes or not having fines for late fees if people can't afford it. I haven't seen any more direction since that phone call. He asked me what that would do to our school, and I think he already knew the answer to that, but he said he had to ask me anyway, and I said, well, that would probably put us into statutory operating debt pretty quickly if we did not get our spring taxes unless we went the route of doing some short-term borrowing, which would eventually would cost a little bit to the school with interest rates. And so he understood that as well. So I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Josh. or
Yeah, I
not.
can. Got an email earlier today from Dakota County, and they're looking at doing the same thing she got asked by Goodhue County. It appears that everything that's based on an escrow payment will be doled out as normal, but they are going to be flexible with individuals that aren't able to pay their property taxes at this time, and it looks like they're going to be pushing the deadline for penalty out until July 15th. So it'll affect the timing of our payments a little bit, and maybe the size for our payments in May and June. We will still be receiving funds. In terms of cash flow, as long as we're getting at least 50% of what they're supposed to be at those landmarks, we'll be okay for cash flow borrowing. It'll be pretty tight, but pretty close, but we will get those funds. It may not all show up in May and June like projected or expected. It'll probably end up being more in the mid-July, end of July period. The counties are going to put that penalty beginning on July 15th if people don't have their taxes paid by then. But they are still seeing a revenue stream coming in right now as people are paying their first half of taxes. So my projections in cash flow, when we see those next board meeting, hopefully get a little bit closer to where they're going to be actually at. Right now, I don't have anything from the county on how much that will be adjusted, but I do expect to see a lower payment from the county, both Goodhue and Dakota, for the first payment at the end of May and the second payment at the beginning of June. You talked a little bit earlier about community ed and the Fund 4 with fee-based programs, and that affects the food service a little bit as well, because we're not serving as many meals. The whole K through 12 population is not being served, so those numbers are down a little bit. It'll be interesting to see in the coming weeks as they tighten up information going out to districts from the state, just how that funding is going to be handled. Obviously, the governor's telling us to make sure we're providing all these services and having all this provided to our community. I haven't seen a whole lot of how that funding is going to come into the districts yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that all ties out. The problem, or not the problem, the issue or foreseeable problem could be the fee-based items where we're not charging for Canon Kids or emergency care any longer, and how that's going to affect that fund balance. It's probably going to take a hit in community ed unless we do some coverage over the general fund, as well as food service, with it just being not serving the number of meals that we have been. And although that all the summer food, it's being quoted as summer food, but all the food and meals that we're serving now to families essentially covers 100%. We're still not serving the daily total that we would in a normal school day or normal setting.
Questions for Josh or for Jeff?
Yeah, that's all I have unless you guys have questions.
Okay, hearing none, we're going to move down to public input. Anybody who's not associated with the school is sitting out there listening to this. You have an opportunity to chime in and ask any questions. Hearing none, we're moving forward to action items. We have no old business. We have plenty of new business. Consideration to approve the fiscal year 20 revised budget. Little good news here.
This is a little bit, and it's all, I guess, in relative terms, but this is just really the baseline summary as you can get down to it as low as you can in terms of just you're looking at the fund balances, the general fund, food service, community, debt, scholarship, and then our OPEB trust and debt service for those. In order to really kind of get the whole picture of it, it's a 66-page document of 17-digit codes that kind of gets funneled down into this. When Mr. Britton was talking about a little bit of good news in terms of the general fund as projected currently, and again, this may change and be affected by how we see funding come in from the state for our distance learning, how much that affects our funding in terms of the emergency care and fee-based programs. But as of putting this together and the what if revenue projection schedules that they have on MDE as of now, and with some changes, because like I said, it's a whole big ball of codes that funneled into this. The general fund, about an $80,000 increase in what our projected budget was at the beginning of the fiscal year. Looking at, will come up about $100,000 to the good. While that, $100,000 is a nice number, in terms of a $13.5 million budget, it's a small percentage, but it is the proper direction for what we're trying to look for and the way we're trying to go. This doesn't include items that we've talked about earlier at board meetings where we've looked at reductions. Those will be in the next budget when we look at fiscal year 21. This is all currently just this fiscal year. Some of the changes that you might, big things that might adjust back and forth a little bit, fuel in both heating and buses, I think a reduction, quite a bit, significant reduction from what had been projected in the original budget. That's a savings. The second payment for the Invenergy that was going to be earmarked for the elementary roof. We had that in the budget. We don't have that because we've satisfied that obligation, but those funds are still earmarked and budgeted in operations and maintenance as we're using those funds for other maintenance items, most specifically the entryway. In terms of revenue, a couple of things that are to the positive or good. It would be the Indian Ed revenue. We received our first payment of that portion. It would be $20,000 for the fiscal year. That was not a budgeted revenue at the beginning of the fiscal year. We received half of that already, or $10,000. And then just some of the finer tuning of where our numbers are at in terms of enrollment and state funding for the what if formula in the revenue projection model changes and gets a little bit tighter from the original preliminary budget to where we are now. So you see a slight increase in revenues. That really is the big fund that we're concerned with, is the general fund. These other ones are going to be concerning, just as concerning in terms of, we've got to watch where our fee-based items are going to happen in terms of being out in the distance learning and the COVID-19 situation that we've got with having to adapt and adjust our learning system. But the general fund is the one that we've got to have going in the right direction. And as we've talked plenty about this last year now, policy shooting for between an 8 to 12% fund balance, even though we're going to be increasing our general fund by the end of the fiscal year, at least projected on these numbers. Like I said, it could adjust by the time we get our final numbers at the end of the fiscal year. But we're looking only at about 7.5% of total fund balance in the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. Not where we go out and celebrate and open up the purse strings, but at least it is a move in the right direction. The other funds we'll go through a little bit more quickly than the general fund. So maybe if, rather than going back to ask about general fund, if you have any questions on the general fund revenue expenditures right now, maybe we can talk about that, and then I'll go through the other funds. Is there any questions?
Keep rolling.
Go ahead.
No, keep rolling.
Keep rolling, I'll do it. So food service. Here, because the March numbers are going to be skewed based on the number of lunches we're serving out to kiddos, I've had to reduce some of the projections for our student meals, and expenditures, they've increased a little bit, but what we budgeted for having some cost in there anyway. But what we've gone from is now a positive balance at our preliminary budget to now a negative balance in our projected budget. And again, these numbers are going to be preliminary, and they could change quite a bit based on what kind of funding we see coming in our April clicks and our May and June, as we see what the state does to fund our food service program right now as it sits, as we dole out meals. Not a huge negative, but in terms of where we want to be in food service, we want to make sure that that's a positive number. Last year we had to do a transfer from the general fund to keep food service positive. If this were to hold true all the way out through the end of the fiscal year, we'd have to do the same again at the end of this year. This is not one that we really could have projected at the beginning of the year to say, hey, if you raise prices another nickel, dime, whatever it may be, that we could fix. This is more of environmental and what's going on in the world today. Community service, you'd think with the fee-based programs, probably taking a hit that this would be a little bit more similar to food service. But what we've done here is, after talking with Mr. Sampson, tried to allocate the community ed and AD director's salary more proportionate to what's actually community ed time versus general time. So there's been some allocation of costs from community ed back into general fund for that, as well as taking some of those benefits for the preschool teachers out of community ed and moving that towards general fund. So we get to more putting cost where it really needs to sit. So you'll see in the community ed about a $15,000 balance in the preliminary to now about a $40,000 balance in the revised budget. And again, that could change significantly based on how we end up handling emergency care and how the state ends up funding that as well for us in these next couple of months. The next funds are really based on, more or less the actuality of the numbers. The debt services are more or less the mortgage payments. So that's set up through levy, as we talked about earlier with the county, probably delaying some payments. We may have a little bit slower pay into those funds, the debt service and the OPEB debt service, but the funds will get there. The good thing about both the debt service and the OPEB is the majority of those payments go out in February, the big part of the payments. We'll have a interest payment in August, but it won't be the big payments that we make in February. So we'll be able to satisfy those obligations, even if we don't get all of the funding from the county on time. So we will have really, with what we have in our balance right now, no worries about having to make that payment. It'll be taken care of. Trust and agency is our more or less scholarship fund. We do have a couple other items in there that are able to stay in the district control and be rolled over from year to year. But for the most part, this is just your scholarship accounts. And we have a great community that supports education really well, and that really funds itself in and out. And you'll see normally our balance is right around that $100,000 mark. And it's a little slight increase as we received some payments, maybe a little bit earlier than maybe in past years, as we're trying to make sure that donors get funds in before we pay out scholarships. We don't really have any problems or any issues collecting from folks that are donating scholarships. It's just more of a timing. It would be nice to have the funds in hand before we make those payments out to students to make their scholarships. So we've seen a little bit of a slight increase, about $6,000 in the scholarship fund. The last two funds, this will be the last year you really see those, the OPEB, as our OPEB obligations will end at the end of the year with our last debt service payment. There was a $1 million bond that we took out to satisfy 10 years of other post-employment benefits. We've made our last draw on that. There's a slight cleanup of about $20,000 that will take place at the end of this fiscal year in 20. Other than that, then those two funds will end up dropping off as we go now to a levy for some other post-employment benefits from the county based on the teacher's contract now having a sunset clause in it. So that's really kind of the quick and dirty summary of what goes on in terms of budgeting. This will be revised and revisited again at the end of June and tightened up to where we're really accurate on what numbers are going to be at. But in terms of where we started at, the preliminary budget, where we're at now, things stay pretty consistent. But of note, and a good note for our district, is that the general fund moved in the right direction. If you have any questions on any of the funds or any further clarification, I can certainly do my best to answer.
Anyone have any questions? Jeff, do you have anything to add?
No, I just think we'll keep our head down and keep moving forward.
Yep. Any questions? If not, I would look for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
That came from Bill, didn't it? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Bill on the motion, a second, please.
I'll second.
Seconded by Larry. Any other discussion? Oh, man, I better roll call this, huh? All right. Roll call vote for the approval of the revised budget. Bob, yes. Brenda? Brenda, did you yes that?
Just a minute. Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And Larry?
Yes.
Okay, that passes by a 6-0 vote. Number 2, consideration to approve the 2022 lawn service proposal. Jeff and Dave, comments?
Yeah, our lawn service contract is up and ready for renewal starting for this year, and we will need to, looking for an approval of this proposal. Dave, do you want to add anything to that? Was this the only quote that we got?
Yeah, you know, fortunately, the last couple of years, we've had a great relationship with Anderson Lawn Care. And we're lucky enough that they want to come back and continue to do business with us. And so, yeah, that's the bid that we got. And we'd like to continue that relationship. Todd and Nick have done a fantastic job the last couple of years, and we're going to keep it rolling.
That is your recommendation then?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any discussions on that? You see up on the screen there, the lawn care bid?
Maybe just clarify a little bit, just because I'm getting used to working on a laptop. I get kind of spoiled sitting at my desk with two 22-inch monitors and being able to see everything and work on things. The bottom part is just what the previous quote was the last 3 years that we've paid Anderson as they were under contract. And then the top portion is what their quote is. And I think of note and really a credit to, Anderson's and Nick and Todd, the first 2 years are the same cost as our last year was with their contract. So especially if Dave is happy with the service that they're providing, I have no reason why we would not want to continue that relationship.
Josh, one thing I did notice is that right up top where it says new contract for consideration for 4/13/2002.
Oh, yeah, I got a little finger happy there.
Little 2020 happy.
Yeah, I'll adjust that one. Send it to Lori.
Okay, other than that, any other questions on the lawn service bids? If not, I would look for a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the lawn service proposal.
I'll second.
Katie on the motion, Brenda on the second. Any other discussion? Okay, yes, a roll call, a yes vote would be for the approval. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Bob? Yes. That passes by a unanimous vote of 6-0. Consideration to approve the water softener quotes. Same people. Yep.
Yep, we had some issues with our water softener over the past few months, and it is currently not working, and so we need to get it replaced, and I'll kind of let Dave take over from here with the details of that.
So, yeah, we ran into some bad luck. The water softener that was installed actually was installed during the build of the field house. And what they did is they kind of temporarily just put a small, almost residential sized water softener as a temporary. And that's kind of what we were left with. It had a good run. It went as long as it could till it wouldn't function anymore. And what we're doing here is we're replacing what we previously had prior to the field house build, where we'll be softening all the water. As you know, in your home, even not softening your water and the damage it can do to not only equipment, but pipes, and there's just a ripple effect of damage that it does. And, the one fortunate thing about not using anything in the building right now is we're really not going through a lot of water, and that gave us time to kind of take our time to get these bids in. So this is a proper fix. It's a permanent fix. It's what the building needs to function properly and have all the equipment function properly. So those are the bids, and we actually used Culligan when we redid our water softener at the elementary. And so they had a good bid, and we'd like to, my recommendation would be able to use them again.
I would concur.
When you look at the specs underneath each one, they don't seem to be the same. But I don't know what I'm reading here. You gave them all specs and they all complied, and this is what we ended up with.
Yeah, they got information from Josh for bills on water usage and fixture counts and that kind of thing. They had the freedom to provide whatever equipment they wanted to, but the amount of water and the equipment was equivalent to what the building needs were with all three of the bids.
So we'd look for a consideration to approve, and we can always discuss it after a motion in a second. But do we have a motion to approve the recommended low bid?
I'll move to approve.
That would be Bill. A second?
I'll second.
Katie on the second. Other discussion? Okay, we'll roll call again, and what we're eyeing or naying is Culligan as low bidder to provide our water softener. Bob, yes. Brenda?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay, that passes by a 6-0 vote. Okay, consideration to approve a fiscal year 21 bus purchase.
Maybe Josh can speak a little bit more to this, but this is usually with bus purchases, we need to get these in early, starting for next fiscal year. We just can't order them in July and have them show up on time. And this would be sticking with our plan that we have for transportation. That's still kind of a work in progress, but as of right now, we do need to order this bus. Josh, anything else to add to that?
Sure. Yep. So if you see at the bottom of the quote, it's about $92,000. Talene Transportation, we've bought our last several buses through them. They've been in the ballpark about $82,000 to $86,000. So these are a little bit more expensive. The thing to note is that Talene is on a state contract, so it does qualify for us having gone out for bid or spec on the bus. We'll add a little bit to the financing, a little bit to the final number that we end up paying. This most likely will end up doing as a lease. We wouldn't be able to afford it to pay straight out the $92,000. And that's what's been in the transportation plan that we're currently operating underneath. Like Mr. Sampson said, you don't just go to the lot and purchase the bus off the lot. You have to put the order in, and it takes some time to get there. You got a lot of school districts, a lot of companies that are vying for these vehicles, and they take a little bit longer to put together. It's just common practice, and with a purchase this large, that the board approve the purchase first before we go ahead and go through the leasing and financing of it, and give that final approval to Talene to go ahead and start putting that together. As you recall from last year, we got this process, maybe a little bit of the cart in front of the horse, and we came back and re-approved afterwards. We want to make sure we're doing things correctly. So this is, nothing's been ordered, nothing's been placed yet. This would be the looking for approval to purchase a bus in fiscal year 21. And this would be the pricing on that. And that would be fixed. That would be the contract part of it. I don't know if there's any questions more than that. We had at one point discussed talking of going to gas versus diesel. At this time, the gas just isn't quite working out numbers wise. I think the buses maybe, cost down the road may be a little different, but in terms of where we're at right now, the diesel still is the best option for the bus. In order to keep our vehicle lineup in good condition where we're at and not get behind the 8 ball like we kind of did a few years ago, now we've got a pretty good handle on things. It would be recommended to go ahead and purchase this bus for next year and retire one of the older ones.
So this is, how long would the lease be for then before we would purchase the bus outright?
Yep. So it's strange that we call them leases because at the end we will own it, but it's a 5-year plan. And We'll figure with the financing at about a $20,000 per year cost on that.
Okay, so at one point in time, we talked about an outright purchase. What we're doing now is what we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 buses, right?
Correct. Yeah, we've talked a little bit in the transportation committee of potentially going to a hybrid model once we get things kind of all straightened out and in order, where maybe we're purchasing the majority of our buses, but maybe fill in some gaps with a lease or 2. The reason being is having 18 buses and trying to get one rotated every 15 years, we're just a little bit off. So if we could purchase the majority of our buses but have one on lease and work that into the budget, it'd be always consistent for us in terms of financing and budgeting for, and do the best that we can in keeping vehicles on a proper aging schedule for the district. So I think we're working towards that, but in order for us to purchase one outright right now, we're not quite ready to do that.
Anna, this is your committee. You're familiar with it, our process and what the arrangement is, and you recommend this?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Other questions for either Josh or Jeff on the bus lease/purchase? If not, I would look for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Anna and Katie, motion and second. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll roll call, and a yes vote is for the approval of the bus purchase for fiscal year 21. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
And Bob, yes. That is approved by a 6-0 vote. Okay, moving on down. Consideration to approve the 2022 Cannon Valley Senior Center Agreement. Jeff?
Last fall, you guys asked me to bring this document back for review again for the coming years. At the time, we agreed with this document that there would be $0 per month rental to the seniors. In all actuality, I think it's worked out pretty well. The partnership that we formed with them. And again, it's up to you guys whether you guys want to renew this and send that back to them in the same manner, if you want to change the document at all, but you did ask me to bring it back for review for moving forward. And Laura Bramer is the new director, hired a couple months ago, actually.
Dave Peterson, facility use, this would come under that. How does our structure work with the seniors, as far as you're concerned?
Everything's been working fine. We pretty much stuck to the program that we've been doing over the last several years, to be honest with you. Just the change in leadership over there. I go over there, have the introduction. Honestly, I think it's worked out quite well. I haven't had any issues really to bring up at all.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or concerns that they'd like to share? If not, I would look for a motion to approve the 2022 Senior Center Agreement.
This is Bill. I'll move to approve.
Motion by Bill,
I'll second. It's Brenda.
second by Brenda. Okay, any other discussion?
What does it cost? Oh, sorry. I don't know who that was.
Yes, what we had talked about before is just bringing this back before the board each year. And I think that's the important part of it, and just recognizing the amount of space that they were using. And so I think this is a great thing for both of us. We got the space being used, the community's benefiting. So I think it's a positive.
Anna?
What does it cost for us to maintain ownership of the CCC, and how are we, I know some of the people that use that building are paying rent. Obviously the senior center has not for the time that they've used the building. Just curious on where we stand as far as what we're paying for the building versus what's coming in.
Unless Dave has that or Josh has that off the top of their head, I guess I don't. We can
You know, I have average electric and you know, gas and that kind of stuff, but Josh might have a better grip on exactly what our costs are.
Yeah. So I haven't put anything together since I was about a year and a half, 2 years ago when Ms. Geese was going through that. But at that time, about $25,000 a year, and that's just the utilities part of it and maintenance in terms of having a custodian go down there to maintain the building. If there were to be larger things that would happen, whether it be HVAC or roof, obviously we're responsible for that building. We'd have to take care of it. And those are all costs that are, you know, they're going to come up. You know, things are going to happen. Roofs will leak and units will break and whatnot. But between $25,000 annually for the utilities on that building. We do use it for school-sponsored activities. It's nice to have around for the extra space for our activities in our community. Right now, I think the ECFE and some community ed programming is down there as well. So it'd be hard to write all that off to just rental groups. So the actual allocation of what a cost would be for a renter, I'd have to go through all those numbers again, but in your kind of rough guess, about $25,000 a year for the utilities.
Okay.
You know, as far as any repairs or anything related to repairs on the building, it's just very difficult to put a number on that. I don't know what we've put into it the last few years, but as far as predicting what's going to break is extremely difficult. Those systems need to operate regardless whether there's anyone in the building or not, to be very honest with you, as long as we own it.
You're saying we would have at least some minimal utility charges regardless of empty or full.
Well, we'd have minimal utility charges, but with running the utilities, you're also going to incur some maintenance costs with those. Potential breakdowns, bearings going out, general maintenance, cleaning of the equipment, filters, those kinds of things. Just basic everyday maintenance that goes along with operating the building.
Any other questions? So we've got a motion and a second on the floor to approve the senior center agreement. A yes vote will be to confirm that agreement for the upcoming 20 to 22. Bob Britno, yes. Brenda?
Yes.
Anna?
No.
Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Okay, that passes by a 5-1 vote. Okay, next area, last one on our official agenda is a consideration to approve the 1921 to 21 superintendent goals.
With the board passing the action plan at our last meeting, I started developing my goals, which we will start networking out into building goals and other administrative goals as they work down here. But really, these are based off of the beginning of our strategic action plan. The performance goal number 1, networking and communication with Cannon Falls community. Basically getting to know the community and the people within the community. I've been working on that obviously since day one, partnering with civic organizations to help promote and grow the greater Cannon Falls area to help increase school enrollment is a performance goal number 1 as it reads. Performance goal number 2, work with the school board, community administration team, and other stakeholders to create and update the Cannon Falls Area School Strategic Plan. Obviously, from when we started this process, through the the start of the pandemic, which is going to be throwing off our dates as we talked about last meeting, to now, we will probably have to start taking a look at that plan again sooner rather than later. And I'll bring, at our next meeting, I will bring updated date proposals for you, as some of those dates are already out of line with what's been going on. And obviously the second part of that goal would be including an action plan for our administration team to carry out. Performance goal number 3, work with the school board, finance committee, and other stakeholders to set the desired fund balance percentage target and move the district toward that balance. So obviously we're in the middle of these per our conversation with Gary Lee, but this will continue into the end of next school year. As I go through these goals, I will be adding evidence of what I'm doing to meet those goals, and for you guys to review at the end of it to do my evaluation piece.
Questions for Jeff? Nothing? Who's that?
Said nothing, I believe.
Oh, okay. A motion to approve the 19 to 21 superintendent goals. Do I have one?
Make a motion to approve.
Brenda on the motion,
I'll second.
second by Bill. Other discussion? We'll take a roll call vote once more for the approval of the superintendent goals. Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
And Bob? Yes. That passes by a 6-0 vote. It's the end of the dance. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to discuss or throw out to the board, admin, anyone at all? You can see what the upcoming regular school board agenda will be for April 27th. Please review that and be prepared for a long one. So if no one else has anything for the cause, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Anna on the motion to adjourn, second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Katie. You done good, team. Everything went better even than the last time. We're getting better at this, sad to say.
Except for Bill.
Yeah, we got to kick somebody when they're down, don't we?
It was me last time, so.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Bob, are you in favor of adjournment? Yes. Brenda?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And Larry?
Yes.
Okay, we are officially adjourned by a 6-0 vote. Thanks for shopping.